Tonight's true scary story is the extended version of the full moon creature. This one is terrifying, you guys, and I freaking love it. Before I get started, it really does help me a lot if you appreciate my work, if you can hit that like button, but only if you appreciate my work, no pressure. Grab yourself a dog, a teddy bear, or another person preferably, because this one is gonna scare the shit out of you. Tonight's murder's name is Addie. When Addie was 10 years old, she moved to the countryside, surrounded by farmland, into a new home. It wasn't a new house, so the doors creaked when you opened them, and the roof and walk made a lot of cracking sounds. Since that house was super old, it didn't seem to have any reason to be haunted, but it was filled with antique furniture, some dating back to the 1700s. For the first 3 years, nothing really happened, or Addie was just too young to really think anything of it. But ever since they moved in, she always had a feeling of being watched, or like somebody was with her. She saw shadows out of the corner of her eye, which would disappear whenever she looked. The house was also quite dark, so she kind of just assumed that her mind was playing tricks on her. Not long after her 13th birthday is when very small, unexplainable things started happening. Just small things though, like a pen would roll off her desk, or a cup would move by itself, or a nail file would go missing for weeks and then suddenly appear in the middle of her room weeks later. At the time, she didn't really think anything of it, but over the next year or so, things became a little bit more obvious. One night when she was home alone, she was watching TV and her dog was sitting at her feet. She swore she heard footsteps walk past her towards the corner of her room. Her dog then stands up and looks directly at the spot where she heard the footsteps. She started growling at the corner and then all of a sudden just stopped and timidly started to whine. Her tail was tucked in between her legs and she was refusing to move. Mind you, she was not a small dog, so this was pretty odd behavior. She was creeped out, but she didn't think anything of it until she looks over at the pillow on the couch next to her and it looks like an indentation, like someone is sitting down on it. And the creepiest part was it's a leather couch, so when it happened, she could hear the noise of the leather squeaking as it pushed down. Now, she tried not to think anything of this because in her head, she lives by the theory, if you heard it, no you didn't. If you see it, no, you didn't. A few days later, she was walking down the hallway where her room was, and she shut the door behind her. Her bedroom door creaks a lot and is pretty heavy, making this loud thud when the doorknob is turned. She then hears the doorknob turn and the door open behind her, and she thinks it's her mother, when suddenly she feels this cold hand against her lower back. She turns around. Her mother is not there. It is not her mother. She is now creeped out. She checks to see if her mother is in the hallway. She checks to see if she's in the kitchen. Her mom is not there. She's creeped out, but again, she wants to ignore this, so she goes to sleep. Things like this started to happen over the next 2 months or so. Like she would be home alone and she would hear someone whisper her name. Or hearing someone open the door and walk up to her when no one is there. The feeling of being watched was getting stronger, and at this point, she was feeling a bit paranoid. She was always sleeping with a flashlight near her, and she couldn't even walk down the hallway without looking behind her. She has insomnia, so she's usually awake until the early hours of the morning. One night, around 2 a.m., she heard her mom whispering through her door. Addie, Addie. Thought she was imagining it, so she just ignored it again. But then she heard her mother whisper her name, but right in her ear. Addie, Addie. She sits up, and that's when she hears this scratching sound coming from the wall next to her. So she waits a while, she doesn't hear anything again, and she just decides she's gonna go to sleep. This girl is effing brave, man. But the next day when she wakes up, she notices some faint scratch marks on her wall. And this can't be because they had just painted her room a month prior. Side note here, and this will make a lot more sense later, there was a friend that came to her house and started spending a lot of time at her house. Addie knew her mom, and also knew that her mom was friends with a lot of people who were into a lot of spiritual stuff. She thinks they were mediums or psychics. The first time they came over, her mother drops her off and her mom comes inside. As soon as she walks through the door, she was acting strange and made an excuse to leave. And from then on, she would only come to the top of the driveway. She would come nowhere near the front door. So this will make sense later. The next few months is where things got really creepy. Now she's about 15 years old at this point. One night she wakes up and she's standing outside the bathroom. She hadn't slept walk since she was a kid either, so this was really weird, but she decides she's just gonna go to the bathroom anyway since she's standing right in front of it, and she has to go. Now, this bathroom was right next to the door leading to the backyard. It was summer, so the main door was open and just the screen door was shut. She could hear the sounds outside, like the crickets and all the other noises that the forest makes, when all of a sudden she hears this blood-curdling scream. It sounded like it was coming from outside. It sounded like it was maybe 15, 20 feet from the back door, and then it was followed by this creepy, cackling laugh. It felt like it was circling her. She was absolutely terrified at this point. She did not want to move. She stayed in the bathroom for what felt like ages, because in order for her to get back to her bedroom, she had to walk past that screen door, the door that was open. Yeah, no. Finally, she runs into her room and she covers her head with the blanket, and she does not sleep for the rest of the night. Now, the next incident she remembers being about a month later, because it was a full moon. She went up to the back of the property to lock up the chickens. Now, this is quite a big property, and they have some livestock there. The very back of the property is where they have a few bird cages. And behind them is about a 100-meter stretch of forest along a back fence with some really tall, weird pine trees. To get to the kitchen coop, you have to go right up to the back fence and through a gate. But she didn't take a torch with her since the moonlight was bright enough to see the path. This would have been around 10 p.m. Now she's looking at the door of the chicken coop when all of a sudden she hears this rustling sound on the end of the pines about 90 meters away from her. She assumed it was a possum since this is the Australian countryside and there are a lot of animals. But when this noise didn't stop, she thought it was odd. Then whatever this was started to move through the trees and stopped at the tree right in front of her. It then got from one side of the trees to another 90 meters in 3 seconds. Faster than she had ever seen anything move in her life. At this point, she is freaking out because she knows that an animal cannot move that fast. She's thinking to herself, maybe a big bird, until it drops out of the trees onto the dry leaves below. Just doosh. She's wanting to imagine this right now, to be imagining this, but then the birds start chirping. This thing starts running at the bases of the trees, and since it was summer, the dry leaves and twigs were making that crackling sound. It sounded really big and fast, like it could have been a person. She's frozen at this point, and she's trying to just stay crouched there, just still, for about 20 minutes. She doesn't want to move because she has to go right up to the fence to get out, and it's right there. After she doesn't hear anything for a while, she sprints as fast as she can to get to her father. She tells him, "Dad, there's something up there." So he goes and checks, but he doesn't see anything. He didn't believe her until the next full moon. He asked her one morning about what she had told him about the thing in the trees. He said because he thinks that he saw the same thing the night prior, in the front yard this time. So he wakes up in the middle of the night because he thinks that he hears a fox. It's normal where they live to own a rifle. So he goes out in the front yard with it, walks down the driveway, but when he doesn't find anything, he heads back to the house. He said just before he reached the door, he hears something coming from the trees behind him. He tried to shine the torch on it, but he said it moved from the base of the trees way too fast. He couldn't even catch it with the light. But as he lowered the torch, he sees the shape of something dark and skinny. It looked like it was crawling in a crouched position, and he could see the reflection of its eyes. I'd never seen her dad that freaked out because he said that he had never ever heard of any animal that moves or acts like that. Safe to say they bought an automatic door for the chicken coop that day. Now, probably about a few weeks later, she had the worst experience she has ever had. And I fucking agree, man. She said she still hates to think about this experience because of how badly it freaks her out. Now, she's suffered from sleep paralysis since she was little, but it's usually pretty normal. She just tries to wiggle her fingers and toes until she can move again. But one night, in the early morning hours, her room was just light enough to see. She woke up and she couldn't move anything except for her eyes, which is weird because she normally can't open her eyes during sleep paralysis. Then she sees something dark at the corner of her eye. In the corner of her room, there's this thing standing there watching her. It's tall, incredibly skinny, pitch black skin, long, lanky arms, and super long fingers. It has ratty, long black hair and white eyeballs. Moves to the foot of her bed with this weird twitchy movement and then crouches down right next to her face where she can see it. She's trying her hardest to move, but then she feels this thing's hand pull on her blanket. It crawled onto her bed until it was crouching over her on all fours. Its face was so close and she could feel its breath on her face. It kept twisting and turning its head in different angles and staring at her the entire time it's doing it. She got this tight feeling in her neck and she could barely breathe. She got dizzy and she swears she started convulsing or like seizing or something, she thinks. Crawled back off of her bed to the foot of her bed, and then as soon as it was gone, she could move again. She sat up and she looked around her room, but it's gone. And the next thing she remembers, she just falls backwards. She thinks that she passed out. She tried to find something similar, like a picture of what this thing looked like so that she could give us a better idea. And she said that the closest thing that she could come to was Diana from the movie Lights Out. And if you guys haven't seen that, if you want it to ruin your night, you can go look it up because no thank you. Now, her parents didn't believe her until not long after this, the same thing happened to her dad. But he said his just stood at the foot of his bed and just watched him for a while and slammed its hand onto the foot of the bed and just faded. That was the last thing that she had experienced for the next few years and then moved away in February. Just after the house was sold, she was talking to her friend of hers whose mom was acting weird. She was saying how that house was terrifying and she was glad that Addie was leaving. This is when she told her that her mom hated it too, and when she asked her why, she said that her mom is a medium or something similar, and the first time she ever stepped foot into her house, she felt something incredibly dark. She said it terrified her and she didn't want to go inside again. She said since moving, she's only had minor creepy things happen to her, but she will never forget that house, and when she thinks about it still to this day, it gives her chills. So what do you guys think? That was freaking terrifying. I'm sorry, but that was terrifying. Number one, why was it always seen on a full moon? Number two, what the hell was it? Like, and also it was allowed in their house. I truly believe that when you have sleep paralysis, that this is something like demonic. That's just my opinion, because I've had some terrifying sleep paralysis incidents. Thank God I've only had like one where I've seen something. I normally just hear and feel things, but I do not believe sleep paralysis is something scientific. I think it's paranormal. Like, that's just my personal opinion. What do you guys think? I sometimes think that entities use this in order to terrify you. I mean, you're in your most vulnerable state, and I believe that they cause something so that you can't move. But that is just my personal opinion. That is not factual, obviously. What is your opinion on that? And also, I want to know, like, something was they were mimicking her mother. Do you remember that? Like, what was that about? Is there a mimic in the house? I just don't get it. And it also left the chickens alone. Like, I don't know. So many questions. What are your questions? Because she's going to be in the comments, you guys. She did not want to remain anonymous, so that's her real name. And she will be in the comments seeing everything. And so I'm sure she'll answer your questions. So, oh my gosh, just this one was terrifying. Before we go, obviously, I'm going to do my shout outs, my favorite part. Janine M.R. Ozick, 1968. I'm probably butchering that, but you are so sweet. Thank you for your comment. That was so sweet on my gnome video. I genuinely appreciate that. I love it when people are kind, and you are kind. Thank you so much. I love you for that. Thank you for being a supporter. You like really mean so much to me. Thank you. And Camille McColgan 179. I'm butchering these names. I'm so sorry. But thank you so much for being a follower on both my TT and here. I appreciate that more than you know. Thank you. I love you for that. Thank you for commenting. Thank you. You're so sweet. Like, I appreciate your support more than you could possibly understand. You know, I love every single one of you guys with all my heart. I genuinely will always be so humbled by all of you. I love you guys. And I do two things for me. And what are those? Have a safe night, and what else? Have a spooky night. Love you guys. See you in the next one.